Boom, we are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the private bear family said, hey, you should go live. And I was going to say I'm not one to argue, but that's obviously not true. In fact, I like arguing quite a bit, debating, conversation. Let's try to get to the bottom of things. Even if that means our emotions might get hurt because we might be wrong. That's what we try to do. Figure out how close to the truth we actually are, for better or for worse. Anyways, so what we're going to do is start with Bitcoin. Yeah, there we go. Boom, the turnaround. The secondary shakeout. We were looking for this slight turnaround. On the smaller time frames, it's actually quite visible too. Now, to me, it looks like we are forming a new trading range. Just very briefly, something like this. So we're going to want to keep a close eye on this here. This smaller trading range after this other smaller trading range. Kind of important. We saw this again back it feels like so long ago. Crypto time is like this weird vortex of nonsense. Just throws you in for I wonder if I'm still connected because my internet is going awfully slow. Let's take a look here. Okay, it says it's working. Just going incredibly slow. Okay, so back here, this is what I was trying to make a comparison to these two moments. This one, and then these two over here. Although never identical, our goal is to find out what kind of trading range we form here. Do we get a quick spring down? Or do we close below this? If we start to close below $47,000, we're definitely going to have a bigger correction. But already we're starting to see it turn up. A fair amount of stopping action has taken place, considering how little supply has come into the market. This is always kind of one of the fun things about watching and learning through each of these steps. First off, I'm happy. If Bitcoin goes lower, I'm going to grab more of it. If it goes higher, great. Grab more of it again when the time comes. But for now, our main focus is to really try to get a clear grasp on where in this trading range we are. So the initial idea here is that we've seen our buying climax up here and our primary support down here. And then it's a secondary, this is basically your SOS and backup. So we could make conjecture that this is actually phase C still, if that makes sense. Now, this is one of the interesting parts about these kind of stepping stone patterns. First and foremost, they were nowhere near as sexy as the long-term accumulation range we started charting for Bitcoin that just ended in August, where we had gone and traveled between the $13,000 and $3,000 area for about 2 years, and then finally broke out of that area. Those long-term accumulation ranges are around for like 2 to 3 years. They give you ample opportunity to find your way with them. Here, I'm looking at the 45-minute, the 4-hour to gather data, and that's always less reliable and a bit more dramatic. Because of that, I don't want to change my bias too early on in the market, right? So we just left the trading range, so I want to remain biased probably for a long time. There's a pretty interesting dialogue here. We've gone over this a little bit before with a Glassnode. Now, here's the percent of the open interest on Bitcoin, basically. So how many Bitcoins there are in the open exchanges like Bybit, Huobi, Binance, Coinbase. And we had a nice big chunk of supply come onto the market, approximately 0.2%, and then instantly turned back around, has been already bought up and turned back into cold wallets. So saw this news around F2 pool, and they're just dumping Bitcoin and da-da-da-da-da. Their posts were very vague. They're like, in our day, we've mined 1 million Bitcoin, and we just sold a bit, and that was 10% of our reserve. But they didn't say they actually still had 1 million Bitcoin, which is key to note. But what they sold is only 10% of their reserve, around 10% of the reserve. So this around 2,500. I think they had sold some 10,000 Bitcoin or something like this, 14,000. So we could assume that they maybe have a few 100,000, right? Which again is being eaten up quite quickly. Grayscale buys Bitcoin. How many Bitcoin did Grayscale buy this month? Grayscale bought, I wonder if it was 17 hours ago. Good, they will give us a nice update here. So Grayscale is a big company. They're always acquiring more Bitcoin and Ethereum and apparently a bunch of other tokens now, just as a general trust. They purchased nearly $25 million worth of Ethereum in a single day after the price dropped below $1,600. So just the other day, they bought $25 million worth of Ethereum. And according to the latest data published by Bybit, again, Grayscale has accumulated a total of 15,500 ETH in the last 24 hours to take advantage of the current crash in ETH. And as of the writing of this, the world's second largest crypto trades near $185 billion. So they scooped up 15,000 Ethereum near that $1,600 mark. That was this previous crash when we dropped down around here. And again, we're in this nice kind of below the value area. We've gone over this in the trading ranges before, but generally below the middle of the trading range is considered a value area, at least kind of a layman's standpoint here. We did see a lot of supply come in and a fair reaction, but we're still holding above the primary resistance back here from our automatic rally and our buying climax. The other important feature to note here, and kind of bouncing back and forth between Ethereum and Bitcoin, is that we're actually at an all-time high support range for Ethereum as well. So we got over this with the private group in the last bear forage. And if we zoom out here and take a look at Ethereum on these longer time frames, well, number one, we can see we came up to hit our first primary first and then second regression lines here, and our third and final regression line is up around $2,600, and we've dropped right back to the bottom and just a little bit below this regression line. But even more importantly, take a look at where the previous all-time high is. The previous all-time high of December 2017 is pretty much exactly where we've wicked down to. We're now finding support not just on that smaller trading range we were watching, but also right along the previous all-time high. And this is actually nice to see. I suspect we're going to continue to bounce off of this range. And when you see news like this, they're buying up 15,000 Bitcoin when trading near $1,600, just less than a day ago, basically. They now hold 3.17 million Ethereum at a value of more than $5.1 billion. So they've purchased 238,000 Ethereum in the last 30 days. That's an enormous amount of Ethereum. Congratulations. So the company also purchased 173 Bitcoin worth, near 6.7 in the last 24 hours. They have 650,000 Bitcoin under management with a total worth of approximately 33 billion now. Big numbers. Yeah, around 38 billion they're managing. So Grayscale is constantly buying up Bitcoin and Ethereum. And often when we have these tests, we're seeing multiple things take place. Again, number one, for Ethereum at least, our previous buying climax is now showing areas of support. And we just touched the previous regression line we've been watching at around $2,000 before turning back around. That's quite nice. Looks beautiful to me. We saw something quite similar with our lower regression lines from our previous automatic rally and the regression line off this corner of the chart here as well. So we've seen a nice area of support that's being built here, and it's in a great spot for it. Nothing yet here signals a bull market over to me, but again, we want to keep a really close eye because there was a big change here, which was the amount of supply coming in and the effect on the market. And it's much clearer on the 6 hour here when we start to compare shakeouts, that you have the primary shakeout in the earlier part of the trading range with the supply down here and the shakeout price spread here, and the similar amount of supply, just a tad bit less, and the overreaction and the price spread here. So supply and spread of price, again, this is called the effort versus results. See, the effort is the amount of supply coming into the market. The result is how deep the price goes, up or down, either direction. In this case, we are watching on the downside, hence the red supply bars. But again, this moment here is the first time we've actually seen a larger price spread from supply coming into the market. It was very, very quickly absorbed on both Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's a lot of buying power up here still, so keep that in mind. Now, if we start to see a total failure, it's likely after the next kind of moves through these trading range. They don't happen overnight, but they try to scare you to get out right away. So effectively what's nice here is on Bitcoin, we're already posting clearly higher lows in the wicks itself. Now, I don't think that this particular shakeout is all the way over yet, but on the 1 hour and the Heiken Ashi here, we do start to see that there is a slight trend change. We'll see if it continues to hold to move further down this line. But again, when we're witnessing these larger trading ranges take place, and especially with that kind of fractal comparison we had made earlier, it seems very likely to me that what we will see is the buying climax turn around. It'll make these secondary tests. We might even see a spring to the $41,000 area, very similar to the $30,000 area here, before continuing up and above the trading range. But predominantly, again, as we get closer here, we can see a few key things. Number one, there is a big gap here still below 45 and 42,000. Before we have any support to the $37,000 range. And again, we kind of just took off out of this $37,000 area and continued up quite quickly. So here you could even expect to see a spring that goes as low as 38,000. None of those would invalidate the bull market still, and that's one of the tricky parts. But if we were to close like this below 36,000 and then not get back above 43 and do something like this, I would start to be a lot more worried about a position here. But until then, I don't want to risk not being in a position, and I'm not a day trader. I'm not looking for these little turnarounds. Although we can do that, it's just not worth the stress on myself. I have things to do like swim in the ocean and play music. So I much prefer these longer, okay, let's find a 2-year accumulation range and then just be in for the whole bull market, or at least most of it. And we caught the pretty damn close to the bottom, which is really nice and mostly unexpected. That was from a learning lesson of the pandemic. So again, this to me just looks like an iteration of what we saw back here, which is something like this. You'll see a spring, it'll come down to the secondary test, and then I think we're going to break above and continue up much, much higher. I think the selling pressure that we were seeing is getting gobbled up by companies like Grayscale. And even here, you can see how quickly, new supply came into the market, but almost instantaneously half of that turned back around and went on to new cold wallets. So that the market is chewing that supply up when it does come in. The minor net position change is a new little feature that Glassnode liked, and it ignores what pool it is. Doesn't say, oh, it's the F2 pool, but it just shows all minor net positions. So keep that in mind. Like, I don't need to know if it's the F2 pool. I have access to all the information of all the pools right here. And we can see that they have been selling largely since the beginning of January. And it's important to remember, guys, miners are businesses. They have to produce revenue through generating Bitcoin and then selling that Bitcoin into the open market so that they can upgrade their servers, their Ethernet cables, hire people, new infrastructure, all sorts of things, again, that make it in their best interest to sell when they're at a profit. It's like a car company that would make cars and then just not sell the cars. Well, they have to produce more, so this is their product. They produce Bitcoin. That's what miners literally can do. Their job is to make it so that they can sell it. Otherwise, I don't, maybe someone taught me business wrong. I don't know. Maybe I don't know anything about business. Maybe you're not supposed to sell products, but I'm pretty sure you are. So the miners have been selling, and very noticeably so since the beginning of the year. Again, in my estimation, just as a good entrepreneur, as I have been able to manage being an entrepreneur for quite a few years, and I would say somewhat successfully, you got to take the wins when you can, and prepare for the rest of your year. And often they will move like entire year's worth of salary around and their future buying and spending power in a fell swoop in Q1 to make up for Q2, 3, and 4 to make through the rest of the year. A very common tactic in business that has wild swings is to gear for the long term. So I'd keep that in mind. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried again. If we look out even further, because we're looking at a condensed time frame right now. If you look at 2017, the amount of supply that's coming on the open market right now is actually quite thin compared to what was sold off in the past. So this is actually a pretty unique favor here, because again, if we look at the exchange balance stacked, and we take that longer time frame as well. Yeah, if we look at this longer time frame as well, there's more Bitcoin coming onto the open market, but at least since March, since that springtime, it's been doing nothing but leaving. And there's been no dramatic change of that character. So until we see a higher high and a higher low on the exchange stacked, or the exchange balance, as we're looking at here, starts to go up again, I'm not concerned. Not concerned that we've had a change of character in this market yet. So I usually try to be as calm as possible for pretty much everything in life. Although it's not always easy to do. It's at least a good banner and a flag. We want to keep a really close eye on this over the next little while, because if we start to dip below 42,000 and we find that all this buying power is gone, it's an entirely different game to play. But I don't believe that's the case. Yeah, Glasswalker says, wait, you mean work to get paid? I know, right? Isn't that crazy? They had mine and all this Bitcoin, and then they're just not going to sell it. They're dumping Bitcoin. It's like, motherfuckers, that is their business plan. So crazy. New 510 says, how not to be greedy and actualize profits. You know, the crazy part here is that most people are greedy, and that's why they lose, is because they try to actualize profits when they're not even a good investor yet. They try to be a good trader and don't even know the first thing about investing. And generally, you want to go investor sentiment first, because you can become extremely successful by playing long games, much like Warren Buffett, which is just invest and keep investing and don't ever take profits. And you won't probably need that money because you'll have a shit ton more of it. So that's one of the best way to actualize profits and not get greedy, is just to keep working and accumulating more assets. But nobody wants to get rich slowly. Everyone wants to try to get rich quickly. So the idea here is that most people think, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out, and I could go from this thing to that thing if only I could see the future and which one of these is going to move. And although that is a possibility, your first few years as an investor, which is likely the reason why you're asking that question, is probably much better spent just accumulating and not trying to sell anything at all. It's my personal opinion. I've spent years, pretty damn close to a decade, playing in the markets now. And my best advice for anyone that's new is don't try to jump in and out of positions. Just find positions that you can sleep on, positions that you can sleep on for a year, 2 years, and hold those positions and see if you were right. Not try to jump into one position to catch 200% and then move into this other position. Like, that can be done, but it is very difficult for most people to get that good. And in your first few years, you're not going to get that good. So the best advice I would say for not being greedy is just to not think about profits and actualize on acquiring more assets by going to your job, budgeting in whatever you can for the month, and acquiring more through like 5, 10, 20 years of building a portfolio. And then you will have profits that you might actually want to play with, because they would be substantial. Not financial advice. Alex Kushner says, this is for the family. Oh, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, Alex. We go help them with their floor on Saturday, and then we will be posting that video as well. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. Should be fun. Darren Barker says F2 pool dumps 12,000 within hours while other pools did not dump anything. Yeah, I don't understand what this idea of dumping is. They're just running their business. Yeah, that's literally how they operate as a business. I don't see how people don't understand that. Like, they think they just want to mine all the Bitcoin so they can hold all the Bitcoin, but they have to buy more gear, hire more people, pay for more internet, fucking electricity, broken air conditioners, accountants. It's a business, ladies and gentlemen. Mining Bitcoin is a fucking business. So if you have the product that you sell it into the market when the market has strength to chew it up. It's not called dumping. It's called running a proper business model. Jesus, so crazy. People are so crazy. This is such a simple, so simple. Okay, so next thing. Adam says, great advice, Tio. I lost a lot to over trading as a noob in 2017. Yeah, guys, when you're new, don't try to trade. It's super important to catch more of the flex of being a good investor, which is show up all the time and keep investing. Let's see here. Mike LaFrance says, I agree. I held to ETH onto ETH art, 250 made 1,000 profit. 1,000 profit. That's not. It's like tax. That's not even cover. That wouldn't even cover taxes. You have to be patient. Not everything will bounce 2%. Yeah. So much about is understanding like the different styles of investing. My main focus is venture capital because it's usually under the idea of, hey, we understand asymmetry. We know that time will play into our favor through that asymmetry. So we limit our cap and our bucket sizes based off that volatility, and from there, success is actually pretty easy. It's just about time, patience, and letting volatility work to your favor and the numbers work to your favor. Jason Fellows says, dude, what do you think is going to happen with ETH? I really don't. If you're getting nervous with your holdings, you're probably overextended and you're very new to investing. So what I'm going to say is the disease and the sickness of the early investor is lack of education and over-emotional trading. And the best way to cure that is to create a healthy environment of people who are learning, studying, going over the same things, which is exactly what we've done in the Arcane Bear private group. So if you consider yourself adventurous and like trying new things, go to arcanebear.com/private and sign up for our newsletter and our private group. But I guess what I would say there is if you're nervous about your portfolio, you're doing something wrong, which means you're not playing by some very simple understandings. You need to be risk adverse first. Managing your risk in your portfolio means one of two things. Either A, you have stop losses so that you are prepared to take a profit if it hits a particular point, and that's it. That's one way to go. The other is to only be prepared to have in there what you will sleep on and not worry about it. So if I've got $100,000 in Ethereum and it all of a sudden goes down to $50,000, I won't care. I'll be like, great, I'll buy more. I'm not going to try to jump out of that position to reaccumulate either because I have other shit to do, like go surfing and do photo shoots with models, hopefully. But it's a different story. Growing a portfolio is probably a much calmer thing than most people think. Doing a good job of it just takes the practice of understanding and appreciating where you are as an investor. And jumping in and out of positions is going to be very risky. If you're feeling nervous, it means you probably put too much in without thinking about the long-term consequences of what happens if it goes down. Will you sleep on that? Or what happens if it goes up? How will you capitalize on that? Or will you just keep accumulating? Most of you, I'm going to assume by the demographics here, are pretty much young enough to just keep accumulating and ignore selling, especially if you're in your first year of investing, which it kind of sounds like you are, Jason, by the fact that you said you're a little nervous. I could be wrong on this, but ultimately, again, I think finding a strategy that is risk adverse first. And again, I think to be in this space, you're probably not risk adverse to begin with. So make sure you know what that means for yourself. I like this space because it's asymmetrical. I like that it could go, the Ethereum I own could go to zero, and I would be okay with that. We would remove a bunch of zeros from my portfolio, but I wouldn't care. The whole point of venture capital is to be okay with the up and the downside and think about longevity and the potential of what happens if we're right and these products do end up changing the world. Yeah, Jason, you really don't want to be all in and not sleeping well. Your health is worth more than money. And if you are going to be all in, you have to be able to sleep on it. So pick your battles there. I would definitely say you're probably doing it wrong. And if you are doing it wrong, stop losses are a great way to deal with that, or just de-risk the account. There's nothing wrong. Who cares if you don't make as much? Your sanity is going to be a much better driver. What if it goes down a 50, 60%? Can you sleep on that? I can. And I'm okay with all my positions for the next 5 years, even if some of them go to zero. But that's a different story. We'll get more into our venture capital thesis as we move forward. We're going to try to bring on more other successful venture capitalists. We have David Hornick on the show a few months ago as well. He made like $2.3 billion in exits from making like 25 to 30 investments. Guy was a fucking champion, so check him out. Had him on our podcast a bunch of years back. Carly D says, thanks for being my number one YouTube crypto guy. Nice. I'm new. This is just stash up some more ETH, learning from the best. Well, I'm definitely not the best. I'm just trying to be helpful and also learn at the same time. Speaking of venture capitalists, would you mind looking at NU? Don't know what that is. So I'll have a hard time doing that right now. You're still holding Qtum. I probably have some on a wallet somewhere, but I never bought that much to begin with. So maybe I'd have to check a wallet. I have a few. What do you think is happening with ADA right now? It's doing stuff, just like all things. It's being a thing. I don't know, like here, Cardano. Yeah, see, the price is moving. You guys tell, and not always like I mean, look, the structure still looks positive. I think the structure looks positive in everything still. We're just seeing temporary reaccumulation and secondary tests come into the market. Cardano just happens to be holding up very strong, aside from that wick down to fucking 15 cents on Kraken. Nice, as you guys are all focusing on the sleep comments. Nice. Yeah, you know, I guess, guys, just for a general thesis here, you try to be you try to be macro as often as possible. The reason why, maybe we'll go back to this macro frame here. So this is where we pretty much for every day before the bull markets broke past 13,000. This is the chart we are watching. Go out to the daily here, put on the area chart. Oh yeah, we haven't seen this for a while. This is gonna look good. Yeah, there we go. Look at this monster. Okay, so for a long time, we always would start with the macro perspective, which was this much longer accumulation pattern here. This was the sexy bit that we were excited about, because this represented the accumulation pattern before the breakout. Everything afterwards has been smaller reaccumulation patterns, and that's what I think we're witnessing here, is just another reaccumulation pattern, stepping stone along the way. But the sexy part are always these longer accumulations, because it gives you time to find great placements within the market. Because once we hit a top, it's over, and for a long time usually. Same thing happened back in 2014 when the market hit $1,000. It was over for a long time in one fell swoop of an instant, pretty much. This was the final trading range, and after that we did not have any upwards momentum, even in close to the area, for almost 1,200 days from buying climax to breakout. 1,000 days, right? So basically 3 years of kind of boringness after we hit the top, through the distribution phase, into the primary support, the selling climax, your first automatic rally, your secondary test, your first spring in the pandemic, your test, your LPS, and then it kaboom. So we're in this kind of gray area where it's actually nowhere near as fun to know that this, like, it's great practice, but this is the sexy stuff. You want to be in way before most of the other people show up. So that's important. Makes a big difference. like having this macro perspective. Nice, great work. Renegade Coinhead says, take profit into Bitcoin. I'm up 7x since entry. Again, guys, for the shaving of profits, it's really dependent upon your life and what you want to do. If you don't need to, well, even still, shaving off profits is a good idea. I like generally reinvesting into my own businesses. Maybe I want to go hike Patagonia, and I'll pay to go do that. This is always a smart idea to re-move into your life. And if you're up already, moving yourself into a position of calmness where I like the idea of, if you're having trouble sleeping, you're probably too heavy in a trade. Fix that. That's probably the easiest way to build that sentiment, because everyone's risk tolerance is different. Using ideas like, can you sleep okay? And then if you can't, reduce the trade size until you can sleep okay and you're not waking up to look at the portfolio like the crack of dawn or some shit. That's a pretty good indicator, I think, for how well you've built your portfolio. How well can you sleep? Yeah, keep that in mind. BMA says, great stream, Tio. I really like how you tell it straight. Would really like to see you get on the Discourse Syndicate Friday night to hang out on YouTube and Theta channels. Sure, sounds great. If you want, email info@arcanebear.com. Maybe we can line something up. Jason Feller says, I appreciate the words of wisdom. I'm not a new investor, just one with no training. Perhaps I'll sign up for the Bear Den. Yeah, I think perhaps you should, but you do you. I mean, how could you not want to try that? Like, the risk is so low. We offer a no questions asked refund guarantee if you're not happy. And out of the hundreds and hundreds of people we've ever had sign up, very few have asked for a refund, which is pretty spectacular. Jacob says, I turned 50K to 500K back to 300K, so I'm taking profits before I lose more. Great. Yeah, again, I think going with the sleeping strategy is definitely the way to win this one. If you can't sleep because your portfolio's overweighted or you're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, just take profits and be okay with that. If the market goes higher, don't try to FOMO back in. Once you make a trade, let that trade be done for a while. Don't chase things. The over emotional trading is like the worst disease ever. So cure that. Oh wow, so many new comments came in. Yeah, just about anything says, I'm new and it's not fun watching your gains dwindle. This is the thing about getting used to having a larger portfolio. Things go up, things go down. I think Chamath was like, yeah, my portfolio was down $1 billion the other day. So you're not the only one who goes through these wild swings. Maybe think about it like that. There's other people whose portfolio went down $1 billion in this last little market cycle changeover. I think it's an important one to remember. Alex says, Bear Den has been an amazing group. Thank you, Alex. We appreciate that. I don't think XRP is going to beat the SEC. If the SEC sets your sights on someone, I don't know. One of my best friends is a lawyer. I trust people who are smarter than I am at the things that they're good at, and I just go with that. If we see evidence that indicates otherwise, well, then we'll change. But for now, we're not going to bet against the SEC. unless they settled, and I don't think they tried not to settle. They could have just fucking settled. I don't know why they didn't just settle. It would have fixed all of that a long time ago for them. A $1 profit is better than losing it all. I would rather risk losing it still and wait for 100x. When the second, I don't know, I think you mean like third, fourth comma changes the game. The second comma is not that big of a deal. I mean, it's all difficult. It all depends on where you live in the world too. How much you spend on life is a pretty important question. Let's drop back in and take a look at the 4-hour here on our already pre-drawn charts. Hastings says, who isn't freaked out about not having more Bitcoin after the Sailor and Safety? Both Sailor and Safety are not necessarily like, let's say, open-minded individuals. There are people that have made a fuck ton more money than both of them. And although I do like Sailor's play this year, it's been really, really well played for him. There's more successful people than him still, and they've been around for a while. And I try to listen to all of them, and they don't all agree. And that's what I like about listening. Well, first off, I listen to very few people, but the ones I do, I listen to quite frequently. And I'm not necessarily convinced yet that Bitcoin doesn't get replaced either, but that's a longer sentiment. I think the entire point for me was choose your own money, and this ecosystem has given us lots of that. It could be anything, and I still think that's the case. I mean, Elon Musk makes a fuck ton more money than both those guys, and he loves Doge. Speaking of which, look at Doge. Hey, look, it's a Doge. I don't know. Something about something, you know? Yeah, definitely don't margin or trade with leverage if you're new, guys. Sucks at all these guys to get hundreds of thousands of views. They just shill leverage because that's how they make all their money. Like, that's how they've made all their money. Any Bitcoin that they've made or lost is because of you getting liquidated, most likely. That's a little shitty for our ecosystem. But hey, I guess you got to make money somehow. I don't know. Yeah, Eric Pless gets it. Advanced gematria and money. Yes, basically. The idea about taking profits at the highs, I think it's about shaving profits off in general. More importantly, for me, I usually try to, in the venture capital sector, if I remove my initial and let everything else ride, then I have nothing to think about in there. It's all free gravy. At that point. So it's usually a good strategy is if you just remove your initial, that way you're all up no matter what happens. Because again, on the long term here, if you bought Bitcoin at the all-time high of $1,000, now you're a fucking genius. If you bought Bitcoin at the all-time high of $20,000, now you're a fucking genius. It's about time more so than just taking profits. And can you continue to accumulate throughout that time and not worry about getting in and getting out, especially as the new investors? It's so difficult to actually get good at this that most of you will fail trying to and then get discouraged and not show back up, especially when you should be showing back up. Again, over trading is definitely the death and the sickness of the new investor for sure. Almost any type of trading. Just learn how to flex the muscle of getting into the market, let alone getting out and then getting back in. You've set yourself up there for it's like a decade. You know, it takes like a decade to learn how to do that. To get in, get out, and then get back in. That's like 3 years per each of those it takes to figure out. Just the getting in takes 3 years. Let alone getting out takes another 3 years to figure out. Yeah, it's not it's not a fast process. Being good at this takes fucking years. Don't think you're going to get rich overnight. Some people get lucky. A lot of the people you're witnessing are probably just fucking got lucky. That's about it. I wouldn't follow that as an example for a strategy because it's not. I'm still bullish on this whole sector. Yeah, I'm still bullish on this whole sector. I think we're just witnessing a test. I definitely saw Avalanche throw back more gains than I thought it would, though. I mean, I grabbed more at $44 here, thinking we were going to stay within a trading range here. So I was wrong. We had a little bit of a distribution phase there, but that's okay. I'm not concerned. We did come back to the primary support. This was a huge buying climax, so it's still within the range. It's not worrying me. And even still, again, we as individuals all have different risk tolerances. I can probably sit on things that would make most of you throw up. So keep that in mind. I've also taken ayahuasca a bunch, so what might be nauseating for you is quite enjoyable for me. See price swings that bigger than most people's portfolios. Not to brag, I'm just saying, like, you got to get used to the ride. I think. Okay, we're gonna leave it at that. Just want to do kind of an evening stream for all you guys. It's Tea with the Arcane Bear. Thank you for joining us. I had a nice rant. One of the private Bear Den members, Alex, had asked me to do a live stream. It's like, nah, why not? Chat for an hour, see how it goes. I always love doing these things. Appreciate your guys' support. Give us a thumbs up if you like this content. Hit like, subscribe, all those fun things. We will see you guys again on the next episode. Yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. God damn. Shit the bed. Can't remember. I hope you guys like tools. Deal with the Arcane Bear. See you on the next episode. Boom.